Module 4, Sustainability Ethics. The objectives of this module are to allow you to clearly state the ethical extensions required by IISPM members incorporating sustainability into projects and workflows. Through examples and self-study, you will gain a personal understanding of your own ethical approach to project management and sustainability. If we look at the model of the IISPM guide and follow it through from project start to project close, with particular emphasis on the sustainability extensions that we're talking about through these modules, all of this has an ethical underpinning and an ethical framework that we're executing this under. This is what we're going to attempt to work through in this coming module. So let's start off with an overview of ethics and just what we mean. So if we look at a definition of business ethics, and I'll just read this verbatim: the critical, structured examination of how people and institutions should behave in the world of commerce. In particular, it involves examining appropriate constraints on the pursuit of self-interest or profits when the actions of individuals or firms affect others. So what this really boils down to is how we behave as an organization when what we do has an effect on the world, on the community around us, on our stakeholders, both internal and external. It's how we act, what the rules of behavior are that the organization has defined that it wants to portray to the outside world. If we look at sustainability, and according to the World Council for Economic Development, sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This is a generally accepted definition of sustainability, and one which really supports an underpinning of an ethical framework for sustainability project management. So why do ethics matter? Ethics define how we act. It's how our actions are governed in any particular situation. Ethics are not static. What was considered ethical 100 years ago may not be considered today to be ethical. We can look at examples from Western society where 100 years ago it was ethical for people to work, or to be expected to work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, with 1 day off. Today it would be unconscionable in Western society to expect that to happen. Now, the challenge with ethics, of course, is that those ethical decisions and ethical requirements or ethical frameworks are not the same in different parts of the world. So this becomes a challenge as we globalize society. And this brings us to discussing the issue of the globalization of ethics. More and more, as we progress further and further into this age of information and the immediacy of information, we need to have a very clear understanding about what impact our decisions are having on the world. So 20, 30 years ago, if something happened on the other side of the globe, you probably wouldn't find out about it for a week or two. If it was a major news event and there was film involved, that film, it was literally physical stock film. It had to be recorded, it had to be processed, it had to be put on a plane, it had to be flown to a news center where it was then edited and presented. That days could have gone by between the event and between people actually finding out about it and seeing it. Today, of course, with social media and global information access, we're seeing decisions and events are portrayed immediately. There's no delays. Hence the term "something's going viral." So a video is posted online of a significant event somewhere in the world, and it catches on the Twitter feed, it catches on Facebook or other social media tools, and all of a sudden everybody in the world knows about it. So if we take that from the social information, and we look at business decisions. Business decisions are made with an understanding now that they have to be that you have to consider not only the culture that the business is operating in-house, but also where their products and services may also be being delivered in the cultures that they're going to be working in or being delivered in. So it's how they're perceived through that cultural and ethical lens. So we develop a code of ethics, a code to say, how are we going to work in this sustainable world? How are IISPM members going to base their actions? So there's three major points to developing a code of ethics. It has to describe the reasons behind the code. Why do we actually need a code of ethics? We need to understand and clearly identify who that code applies to. And we need to define the particular responsibilities and behaviors expected by the people who are bound by that code. As with other professional associations, you sign up to a code of ethics, and there are inherent responsibilities and rights by signing up to that code of ethics that everybody has to abide by. So let's look at some of the particular ethical considerations for sustainability. If we look at an ethical approach to this, in 1987, the United Nations released a report called the Brundtland Report, which was really the first instance where we defined a relationship between economic development and the environment. This really was seen as the first report on sustainability. And this created a framework that defined the requirements for sustainability as the 3 E's: economic development, social equity, and environmental protection. So if we look at each of these three in turn, economic development, how do we actually remove poverty from the world? How do we provide economic development in those parts of the world where it's traditionally lagged behind? Social equity, providing the ability for everybody to have access to a same base level of services, and those services being the simple services of food, shelter, water, access to education. And how do we do this without damaging the environment? So how do we grow in areas without creating an environmental disaster, without increasing pollution, without using up sparse resources? This is what this report attempted to, or has attempted to illustrate. There's been a lot written on sustainability and ethics, and fundamentally, if you're working sustainably and if you're acting sustainably, then this is an inherently ethical way of acting. So if we act in a way that doesn't compromise the ability of future generations to meet their needs, then we're basing these actions on an underlying ethical framework. And this ethical framework defines our action across these 3 E's of economic development, social equity, and environmental protection. So the Sustainability Code of Ethics. There's certain responsibilities. So the responsibilities to the public. IISPM members shall act in accordance with applicable legislation and laws. No member shall make representation on behalf of the IISPM without authorization. And a member shall be subject to suspension or expulsion from membership where that member has been seen to behave in a manner unbecoming of the profession as judged by the Board of Directors. So, really summed up is, don't break the law, respect the legislation that's in place, don't misrepresent the IISPM, and walk the talk. If we look at responsibilities to the profession within the Code of Ethics, members shall keep informed of the Code of Professional Ethics and the Profession's Guide. IISPM members shall make all efforts to keep current with developments in the area of the profession where their specific expertise is claimed. In terms of responsibilities for others, a member shall ensure that other IISPM members carrying out work on their behalf are conversant with and abide by the Code of Professional Ethics. And in terms of image, IISPM members shall behave in a manner that maintains the good reputation of the profession and its ability to serve the 3 E's. Continuing on, a member shall not carry on business that clearly detracts from the profession, shall not adopt any method of obtaining business that detracts from the professional image of the IASPM. IASPM members shall only accept those assignments where they have knowledge and skills to actually manage and execute them. We shall avoid acting in potentially conflicting situations. And of course, we will treat all organizational information as confidential. All of these issues and all of these points of the Code of Ethics really are defining a way of thinking and a way of working, and it's thinking about doing things the right way. So let's look at a couple of questions just to get you thinking about ethics in situations. So as an example, you're a project manager leading a project that would result in the increased use of non-renewable resources that will not become critical for another 50 years. From a sustainability perspective, ethically, should you as a project manager continue with this project? What would you do? If we look at the WCED requirements of allowing future generations the ability to live with what they have, we should not do these projects. We should not be executing projects that are going to remove a non-renewable resource from our ability, from the planet. Let's look at another question. You're leading a project and you're told to cut costs by disposing of electronic components in a landfill rather than sending them to a proper recycling center. What do you do? Is this just a question of saying, well, the organization told me to do it, so I have to do it? Is it a question of just saying, no, I'm not going to do it, but not taking any other action? Should you take other actions within the organization to highlight that this is not only unethical but potentially illegal, depending on the environment or the culture or the country that you're working in? All of these questions you need to think about, and you need to be able to come up in your mind with the right way of doing something. Let's look at this from a slightly different perspective. You're working in a large organization, and we've all encountered this. There's endless meetings, and there are endless meetings about every detail of ongoing projects. And these meetings are taking 90% of your working day. You as a project manager, you hear a project team member complain that this is a waste of organizational resources. Is this a sustainability issue? The thing with sustainability is we get a preconceived idea that sustainability is about greenhouse gas reductions, about energy use, about water use, about disposing of things in the right way, about proper materials, all of the physical aspects of running a project and running a business. But what about sustainability in the use of the people in an organization? Is it sustainable for an organization to spend a huge amount of time discussing things and not actually producing the products and services which are the reason behind the organization? The actual organizational strategy dictates that we create these, but then we waste resources endlessly talking about the details. My personal perspective on this is that it is a sustainability issue, and it should be addressed. People are more important than things. People are a resource. People need to be used in a sustainable fashion. So this short module, we've talked about the ethical extensions required by professional project managers incorporating sustainability into projects. And the basic idea and the basic thrust of this is that sustainability is inherently ethical. If you are working sustainably, then you are using an underlying ethical framework consisting of the 3 E's. We've seen a few examples. I would urge you to read the Brundtland Report. There's a lot of information in there about how the world works. And think about your own ethical approach to project management and sustainability.